These are the three big principles of growth hacking. You can use these principles to evaluate whether your growth hacking ideas have the potential to produce an exponential return on investment. The first principle is supply and demand. The second is economies of scale or leverage. And the third is marketing psychology. Now, you may be asking yourself, I thought growth hacking was all about rapid testing. I thought it was all about being agile. I thought it was all about getting data and feedback from the market and making quick changes. That's true. And that type of execution can actually be applied to each of these three principles. For example, with supply and demand, let's say you're trying some different low supply channels. One of those might be TikTok, where perhaps there aren't a lot of competitors yet. You can try it out, and if it doesn't work, you can change. You can try a different channel. And if that next low supply channel works out, you double down on it. Now let's look at economies of scale or leverage. What you can do is you can try different key influencers to disseminate your message, and whichever one acquires users for you at the lowest cost, that's the one you double down on and form an exclusive relationship with. The last principle, marketing psychology. You can try different tactical elements. For example, a timer to create time scarcity. See if that outperforms or underperforms another form of scarcity, such as showing inventory shortages. The other key thing to keep in mind is that these principles, in general, exist on a time scale. So, for example, marketing psychology techniques tend to give you a short-term advantage. Psychology techniques are easy to mimic in the market, so competitors can start using it, and then when the market's oversaturated with those psychological techniques, they tend to become less effective. In the midterm, advantages often come from being in markets that are undersupplied or where demand is growing so quickly that effectively you are undersupplied. And typically these types of advantages give you some midterm benefits, but it's not sustainable because eventually competitors are going to realize that there is a shortage of demand and they'll start filling it one way or another. Often this is particularly beneficial when your competition is larger companies. And if you're a small, agile startup, you have an advantage over large companies that cannot move quickly. They can't move quickly because in order to make changes, they have to go through a lot of political bureaucracy, and they also have to be very conservative and be concerned with such things as, is this the legally correct approach to take? And is it going to work in all international markets in which they're participating? Now, the last is the long term. And this is where economies of scale or leverage give you a sustainable advantage over your competitors. And the reason for this is because some markets are only large enough to support a few, or in some cases, one supplier at scale. Now, at the strategic level, that's a fundamental sustainable advantage, being the only supplier in a market or in a duopoly, something like that. But it also applies when we're talking about marketing tactics. For example, in some markets, some niche markets, there's only enough room really to have one major key influencer who dominates the share of voice. So if you're able to get in early and secure an exclusive partnership with that influencer at the marketing communications level, then you have a sustained share of voice in the market that's going to be very difficult for competitors to replicate and is going to make for a very successful growth hack in the long term.